This Notebook LM video explores the profound symbolism of the tabernacle. From its divine instructions to Moses, to its parallels with the 7 days of creation, the tabernacle emerges as a cosmic blueprint, a microcosm of the universe designed to reflect divine order. Discover how its structure, materials, and layout symbolize heaven, earth, and the throne of God.
You know, for thousands of years, people thought of the tabernacle as, well, just a tent, a portable sanctuary for a nomadic tribe in the desert. But what if it was way more than that? What if its really specific, intricate design held a massive secret, like a blueprint for the entire cosmos? It's a fascinating idea, and we're going to dive right in.
So that brings us to the big, bold question, right? Could this ancient tent, the biblical tabernacle, actually be a miniature model of the universe? I mean, it sounds a little out there, but ancient texts really suggest that the connection between this earthly structure and the heavens wasn't an accident. It was deliberate, and it was deep. Okay, so let's back up a bit. What was the tabernacle exactly? Well, according to the book of Exodus, it was basically God's portable home. The Israelites built it while they were wandering in the wilderness after leaving Egypt. It was their place for worship, for sacrifice. Really, it was the absolute center of their entire community. But believe me, this was no ordinary tent.
And get this, the design wasn't something a bunch of architects cooked up. The text is super clear about this. The instructions came from a divine source, a kind of heavenly pattern that was shown directly to Moses. So this wasn't a project about human creativity. It was all about faithful replication, copying something.
And you really have to pay attention to that specific word they use, pattern. In the original Hebrew, this isn't a vague idea. It means a precise model, like an architectural plan. God literally hands Moses this detailed blueprint and says, build it exactly like this, no winging it, no creative flourishes. So the big takeaway here is, this thing is a copy, but a copy of what?
Fast forward a few centuries, and the New Testament picks up this exact same idea. The book of Hebrews flat out calls the earthly tabernacle a copy and shadow of the heavenly things. Think about that. It's not just a sacred space. It's a physical representation of a much higher spiritual reality. It's like a shadow being cast on earth by something massive and real up in heaven.
Okay, so if the tabernacle is a copy, what is it copying? Well, this is where it gets really interesting. Ancient interpreters found the answer in a pretty stunning place, the biblical account of creation itself. When you put them side by side, the parallels between building the tabernacle and creating the universe are, well, they're pretty mind-blowing.
All right, check this out. In Genesis, the creation story is famously structured around 7 days, right? Well, in Exodus, when God gives Moses the instructions for the tabernacle, he does it in a series of 7 distinct speeches. Scholars look at that and say, no way that's a coincidence. It's seen as this deliberate literary echo, tying the making of this little sanctuary directly to the making of the entire world.
And it doesn't even stop there. In Genesis, you have the Spirit of God hovering over the waters right at the beginning of creation. Then you look at the tabernacle story, and the master craftsman, a guy named Bezalel, is described as being filled with the Spirit of God to give him the skill to do the job. It's the same divine power, the same creative force at work in both the giant cosmos and this miniature version of it.
Even the materials they used, they were all loaded with meaning. This was not a random shopping list from a hardware store. Gold, that's all about divinity. The blue threads woven into the fabric, that's the heavens, the sky. Purple and scarlet, those are the colors of royalty. And the brilliant white linen stands for purity. The entire building was literally constructed from a vocabulary of cosmic symbols.
I mean, just look at the menorah, that iconic 7-branched lampstand. A lot of theological interpretations connected 7 lamps to the 7 celestial bodies that you could see with the naked eye back then: the sun, the moon, and the 5 visible planets. So the furniture, the very stuff inside this tent, was a model of the known solar system. It was like a map of the heavens brought right down to earth.
So you have to ask, right? If the tabernacle is this miniature model of the universe, what was the point? Why go to all this trouble to build a portable cosmos? Well, the answer really gets to the absolute heart of the whole story. The whole point was about bringing things back together. It was designed to be the one place on earth where that barrier between heaven and earth was thin. A physical intersection where God could literally come and dwell among his people. You can think of it as a solution to that problem of separation that started way back in the Garden of Eden. And the layout itself was designed as a journey. The whole structure was split into 3 zones, and each one represented a different level of reality.
So you'd start in the outer court. That's the earthly realm, open to everyone. Then you'd move into the holy place, which symbolized the heavens, a place only priests could go. And finally, you have the Holy of Holies. That's God's throne room, the divine realm itself, which only the high priest could enter and only once a year. It's a physical map for a spiritual journey.
There's actually a word for this, microcosm. And that's really the key idea. A microcosm is just a miniature representation of a much larger system. So the tabernacle wasn't just some tent, it was a tiny ordered model of God's entire creation, a small world that was meant to reflect the order and the beauty of the big one.
And, this whole idea of a divine blueprint, it wasn't just a one-time thing. It became a super powerful theme that you see echoing throughout the rest of the biblical story. It really shaped how people understood God, the universe, and, their own place in it all.
So why all the rules? Why be so incredibly precise? Because the design was the lesson. The whole point was to teach that the universe isn't just some chaotic random mess. It's built on a foundation of order and wisdom and intelligent design. And this little tent was supposed to be a tangible, physical example of that huge principle.
And if you kind of zoom out and look at the big picture, you can see the tabernacle as this really crucial point on a bigger timeline. The story starts with God dwelling with people back in Eden. Then it continues with the tabernacle, this temporary meeting spot. And it all points forward to a future vision you read about in the book of Revelation, this ultimate, final dwelling where heaven and earth are completely and finally reunited. So what's the takeaway for all this? For the ancients, seeing this deep connection between their sacred space and the whole cosmos, well, that was their way of finding order and purpose in a chaotic world. And it kind of leaves us with a question for our own time, doesn't it? What patterns do we look for today to connect ourselves to the universe, to find our own place in it all?